Good afternoon, dear colleagues. It's nice to see all of you here today. We are here to discuss about the stimulation of final consumption. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Ekaterina Leonidova. Let's go over the regulation of our scientific workshop. First, I'd like to present our reviewers. One of them is junior researcher Anna Artamonova. The other is research engineer Nikita Rumyancev. The expert is senior researcher, head of laboratory, candidate of science Ksenia Ustinova. So if we are all off, let's go to start it.
Thank you, Sergey. Let me introduce my report about stimulating final consumption. So let's get started. The scientists note that at present, the achievement of economic growth in the country is associated with stimulating consumption, in particular, an increase in domestic consumer demand. In this regard, there is need for a search and scientific justification for the activation of sectors, the increase in demand for product of which ensures structural changes in the economy. It creates additional opportunities for development of the tourism industry, which is one of the most affected sectors. It occupies an important place in the world economy, and it is one of its drivers. Russia is one of the countries with significant potential for development and a strengthening of its role in the economy. At the height of the pandemic, for the first time, there was implemented a program of subsidizing domestic tourist trips, the so-called cashback, as a measure to stimulate consumer demand for tourist services within the country. It actualizes the problem of assessing economic effects after stimulating consumption of tourism goods and services. As for the research methodological base, we use general scientific methods and tools based on input-output analysis methodology. As a forecasting tool, we have used an input-output model based on the main equation of the input-output analysis. According to the data of the Federal Tourism Agency on the implementation of tourist cashback program, the research calculates the volume of sales of tourist products with an increase in final demand on the basis of the input-output model. We also have assessed tourism contribution to the additional increase in the number of employees and salary fund. The tourism role in the Russian economy is significantly lower than the global average, as you can see on slide. Russia has a significant potential for the consumption of tourism goods and services by population within the country. Population's underconsumption of domestic tourism services is caused by a lack of financial resources for travel. In 2020, this reason surpassed in popularity the answer explaining the inability to travel due to the pandemic and relative restrictive measures. Based on the results of the surveys, the pandemic did not significantly affect the structure of summer holidays of Russians, since the number of vacationers in the main resort of the country remained at the level of previous years. 2019 and 2020 may be considered the beginning of fundamental changes in Russian tourism regulation. The industry received a qualitatively new level of support from the state. Scientific studies have established that tourism can be considered a catalyst for consumer demand from general population, as well as influence regional inequality reduction. Among the measures to support the demand for domestic tourism, some states have developed programs to subsidize domestic travels. For example, in Russia, the promotion of domestic tourist traffic was carried out through cashback. In Russia, a part of the cost of buying tours within the country and booking tickets was returned to the population through the mere payment system. The use of input-output modeling allowed calculating the effect on the country's economic with, first of all, consumption of tourist services in the amount of 6.5 billion rubles, and the second, additional consumption of goods and services in the amount of cashback, according to the structure of final consumption of households. The research has also established how the main effect was distributed as a result of the increased demand for tourist products within federal districts. As we can see on slide, in general, the gross output of the economy increased by 12.3 billion rubles. At the same time, additional increase in a number of employees amounted to 4.2 thousand people. Salary fund 2.6 billion rubles. Stimulation of the final demand for 1 and 2 billion rubles in the cashback volume, according to the current structure of final consumption, provided an increase in gross output in the economy as a whole by 2.4 billion rubles, the number of employees by 1.5 thousand people. The increase in the salary fund amount to 862 million rubles. Based on the result of the calculation, we determined that the most noticeable increase in population's demand for goods and service in the economic sectors affected wholesale and retail trade, real estate, and the manufacturing sector of final demand. Thus, the use of input-output balance methodology made it possible to assess the effect of the country's economy from tourist consumption growth, as well as additional demand for goods and services of the national economy sectors in the amount of funds returned to tourists for the purchase of tours around the country. The results of calculations showed that the value of multiplier of tourist expenses corresponds to 1.9. This indicates a high multiplier effect of the industry and confirms the importance of its stimulation for Russian economy, including the reduction of import dependence, as the share of imports in the formation structure of the resources for tourism products is minimal. We can also estimate the effect on regional economies with an increase in the consumption of goods and services of the tourist sector by Russians and additional consumption in the amount of cashback. As you can see on slide, the position of the Central Federal District is explained by the location of the federal city of Moscow on its territory, as well as the concentration of significant economic resources, which allows occupying a leading position in comparison with other districts in many indicators of socio-economic development. The calculation made it possible to determine that subsidizing domestic travel around the country has become a fairly effective mechanism for restoring consumer demand for Russian economy during the crisis period. So we offer some measures to stimulate the industry. Some of them you can see on slide. The results of the input-output modeling analysis allowed justifying that importance of stimulating tourism consumption for the Russian economy. The calculated effect of the cashback program implementation showed that the gross output volume in the economy as a whole doubled, causing also an increase in the wage fund and the number of employees. We state that subsidies for domestic travel programs will make it possible to increase Russia's tourist activity in the future. So my report is over, and I want to ask for your questions. Please feel free to ask me some questions about the stimulating final consumption, or maybe about the development of tourism in Russia. Okay, I see some question in chat from Svetlana Petrakova. She asks about the tourism cashback program in next year. So thank you, Svetlana. And I read in the media that this program will be held in next year because the Russian authorities considered that the program have a great success. So it will be continue the next year. Maybe one more questions. If no question, okay, please, Marina.
Thank you for your report. In your opinion, the introduction of QR codes may worsen tourism indicator in Russia?
Okay, thank you for your interesting question. Yes, of course, the QR code, it's not help to increase the tourist flow in Russian regions, and the tourism business thought that is negative for tourism sector, but what we can do, it's our reality, and maybe in future we can live with it, and we try to live with this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for answering. Good luck in your future research.
Thank you, Marina. One more question, please. If no question, I have to read the review from Anna Tamonova. She couldn't be here today, but she left a review. So she told about some points that I should be paid attention to. First of all, Anna said that I points out that tourism incomes in Russia are significantly lower than the global average, but does not indicate this global average in the table. And we can see only 6 country data. The author also does not specify whether the data presented reflect tourism in general or just domestic tourism. If it includes international tourism, the lower rates are quite easily explained. So, okay, I can explain it. On the table 1, I reflect tourism in general. So it includes only international tourism, not only domestic tourism, but I have to say that the situation with domestic tourism are similar, because the level of domestic tourism is lower than in Russia, is lower than the other countries, such as USA, Japan, or others. Secondly, Anna noticed some problems with rounding, which I have in table 2 or 3. Okay, Anna, I take it and understand you about this. And then finally, Anna said that there is a leap between the main part of the report and the suggestions in the conclusion part. She noticed that I need full additional argumentation in conjunction with the content of the analysis. Okay, I agree with it, but I have to say that the summary of big research and there is a part of its research, and as we say about stimulating the final consumption generally, I have to say that we can talk about increasing of income of households to it will be it can be in this case it can be drivers of the economy. So Anna said that the comments made do not detract from the significance of the study presented in the report, and also she said it is necessary to once again emphasize the high academic relevance of the study. So thank you, Anna, and let's go to the review of Nikita Rumyantsev, and please, Maxim, read this review from Nikita.
I will join to the thanks to Ekaterina Georgievna for the report. Let's start to read a review of Nikita Mikhailovich. It's interesting to know what is there. In my opinion, the report was brief and informative. The relevance of the report is beyond doubt. Tourism is in modern conditions is one of the most dynamic and highly profitable sectors of the economy, providing an inflow of investments, new jobs, strengthening the position of small and medium-sized business. Despite the attention of authorities to this industry, the level of tourism development in the Russian Federation lags behind the expected indicators of tourist demand. The goal of the report has been achieved in full. The tasks have been completed. The presented article substantiates the importance of stimulating tourist consumption for the economy. Of interest is the intersectoral balance method used by the author to assess the effect on the economy from the implementation of the program of subsidizing domestic tourist trips. The level of analysis of the available achievements and results in the state area of research is quite sufficient. Please clarify if there are similar mechanics such as travel cashback in foreign countries or other sectors of the consumer sector.
Thank you, Nikita and Maxim. This question is very interesting. Yes, I have to say that in Thailand was used similar mechanism such in Russia. In Thailand was used tourism program cashback. And what about the other sectors of the consumer demand? I have to say that in China was used the program for automotive industry. In China was a grant for people for buying a car, and this program subsidizing buying a car. So thank you, and now we can go to our expert, and I'll give the floor our expert, senior researcher, head of the laboratory, candidate of science in economics, Ksenia Alexandrovna Ustinova. Ksenia, are you here?
Yes,
Okay.
good afternoon. The author is presented the result of the study on the stimulation of final consumption through the development of the tourism industry. It is proved that the tourism industry has a significant potential for development. The author has calculated the multiplier of tourist expenditures. The conclusion about high multiplicative effect of the industry and the importance of its stimulation for the economy is made. The report touches upon the topic that is relevant both from the point of view of the scientific sphere and the sphere of public administration. The main provision of the study, which are given by the author, argued. This is achieved both through the use of official statistics data and the use of the input-output model. I would like to ask the author a few questions. What are the reasons from your point of view that the significant potential of consumption of tourist goods and services inside the country is not used yet? In the study, you applied the input-output model to estimate the effect of the implement measures. What other methods can be used for the solution of the similar scientific problems? Did you compare the results obtained with those found in the literature on similar problems? Thank you for your report and answers to the questions, and I wish you success in your further researches.
Thank you, Ksenia. First of all, I would like to answer on your first question about the reason. I think that the main reason is a lack of financial resources. And there are other reasons. For example, a lack of tourist infrastructure and a lack of attractive tourist products, and low qualification which work in tourism sphere, and so many others. And what about of your second question about tools and methods? I think that the use of regression analysis is a perspective tool to see the depend of tourism cashback and tourist flow, maybe. And what about the final question? I can see the similar research in Russian scientific literature, so I can't say anything about it. So thank you. And now we have time to discuss and ask some question. Maybe anyone has some question? There's no question. Our scientific workshop is over. Please fill the forms, and thank you everyone. And our scientific workshop is over. Thank you and goodbye.